Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to A Taste of Landline, your weekly insight into the very best of Australian food, farming and more. The Aussies helping rebuild Nepal.
You come here and you can see at the end of a project how people's lives have changed.
The 101-year-old grazier still going strong.
Here you go, team.
And a chilly Christmas feast in Antarctica.
Hello, I'm Sean Murphy. Christmas is a time of giving, and historically Australia has been a generous aid donor in the region. But increasingly, instead of just giving money, we're providing expertise. Science diplomacy is helping some of the poorest countries in the world, such as Nepal. Nepal is limping towards recovery from the earthquake which claimed 8,000 lives and left tens of thousands injured and homeless. The damage is still apparent in Kathmandu's famous Durbar Square, where temples from antiquity are slowly being rebuilt. But the devastation extends far beyond the tourism trade. In the shadow of the Himalayas in Nepal's mid-hills region, some communities lost 80% of their homes. But an Australian agricultural aid program, which started more than 40 years ago, has given people here a head start. State and community-owned forests planted by Australia and other aid donors are helping people rebuild their homes and lives. The plantations are part of Australia's oldest agricultural aid program anywhere in the world.
Up to the 1960s, there wasn't any real controls over people using the forest, and with population increase and people, need the forest to live from and also to graze cattle in, over the time the hills became denuded. And it was a period there that people were really worried about the Himalayas sort of washing down into the Bay of Bengal, because of soil erosion.
Nepal is one of the world's poorest countries, and agriculture is a mainstay of its economy. Agriculture and forestry provide nearly 70% of all the jobs in Nepal today, and more than a third of the country's GDP, which is the value of its goods and services produced. Even still, Nepal is struggling to adequately feed its people. According to the World Health Organization, 13% of the population is undernourished, and for children under 5, 40% suffer from stunted growth. Nepal's Terai is on the eastern Gangetic Plains between India and Bangladesh. The wider region is home to 300 million people and the world's highest concentration of rural poverty. ACR is funding projects which could turn the region into a major food bowl for South Asia.
Look around, it's a fantastic fertile place. So we can grow lots of crop here. The farmers at the moment grow a lot of crop here, but not as much as they could. So with introduction of a few new technologies, there can be a tremendous increase in the amount of food that comes out of the Gangetic Plain. The amount of stubble that is left on the surface.
Neil Menzies is the Dean of Agriculture at the University of Queensland, but at heart he's still a teacher. He's working with Renuka Shrestha and Umesh Acharya, two local scientists who earned their doctoral qualifications in Australia on ACR-funded scholarships. This project is helping to bring conservation farming techniques to the Terai.
So a challenge that we're trying to take on is to intensify the system here, but to intensify it in a sustainable way. And intensification means more yield per unit area. One way we can achieve that is to grow an additional crop.
An additional crop such as mung beans. These women are hand harvesting a crop made possible by shortening the time it takes to grow rice and wheat in a traditional 2-crop annual rotation. Farmers are learning techniques such as directly drilling rice into dry paddies before the monsoon begins. Ajit Khanna has adopted low tillage farming, using the stubble from previous crops to improve his soil. He's also invested in a two-wheel multi-purpose tractor to cut labour and speed up his cropping cycle. Nepal is facing a manpower shortage with 10 million Nepalese, a third of the population, now living overseas. Most of the so-called remittance workers are young men, so women are carrying the load in the farming sector. Reducing labour costs is why Hari Prasad Bhattarai invested in a tractor. He's added spring corn to his rotation because he's able to grow his rice and summer crops faster than when he had to rely on local labour. Women are also driving the change to a mechanised farming future in Nepal. On this cooperative farm with 65 women members, they're using a rice transplanter to get healthy seedlings in before the rain and ensure a higher yielding crop. A job that could take 2 workers half a day is now done in 45 minutes. It's a dramatic change, but Neil Menzies says the ACR projects must balance the need for local farmers to continue feeding themselves as well as boosting production.
It's a really easy trap to fall into, I think, of looking at the farming system and saying, we have this amount of available land, we should be growing wheat, we should be growing rice, we should be growing maize on all of it. But of course, you know, that's what we do in Australia pretty much. It's not what fits here. You've got this subsistence element that's really important, and they need more than just the cereal. They really need, you know, a vegetable crop growing as well. Often farmers will have some dairy cattle, so they're growing feed for their dairy cattle. So there's this really important diversification necessary for them to have a good quality diet, to have a sustainable system.
Cooperative farming is helping some of the poorest people in Nepal, so-called untouchables, who are being given access to water and land for the first time ever. In this Australian-funded project, covering a dozen villages, solar-powered pumps are drawing water from shallow wells dug to provide irrigation for crops being grown in the dry season on land which has been fallow for decades. They're also developing aquaculture with sustainable water resources recharged by the annual monsoon. For Sashila Devi Ram, the project is having a big impact on what she can feed her 3 children.
पहिले तरकारी नहीं पुगे छले किन के लाबै छलिए हटिया से एक दिन आने छलिए त कम कम खाइ छलिए नहीं पुगे छले अब अपन खेत में बारी करे लगलिए त ओइसे 2टा 3टा तरकारी पुगे से खाइला
सबै नमस्कार
There is a deep gratitude for local farming communities for the Australian aid projects. But for the Australian scientists at the coalface, there's a less tangible but equally satisfying benefit.
They're not projects that make scientists famous. These are not the projects that you're going to write the Nature paper out of and get promoted to professor. They're an opportunity to make a difference. Now you come here and do your science and you can see at the end of a project how people's lives have changed.
ACR projects make up just 2.5% of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade budget. But it's science diplomacy that punches well above its weight in the region.
It's not in Australia's interest to have unstable countries that can't feed themselves in our region. It's in our long-term interests that we've got stable, prosperous countries that have viable food systems that are feeding their people well. And that's what our work's contributing to.
loves being cut, loves the axe, it responds very well. We get a lot of vigorous new growth.
The age of the average Australian farmer is 56. That's 17 years older than the age of the average Australian worker. But maybe, just maybe, Max Hockey has put a wrinkle in the statistics. He's still farming at 101. The paddocks and forests around Monto in central Queensland have been the home and workplace for most of Max Hockey's 101 years. As a sawmiller and a farmer, he's seen this country at its productive best and its parched worst.
I was born in Gayndah on 31st of May 1916. My early memories, my father had a boring plant, was boring for water. He must have decided to go out of the boring and he started this sawmill. And then this being a new area up here, he must have decided to come up here.
At 15, Max left school to work for his father. It was hard yakka, but the sawmilling wages gave him his start on the land. Max had money when the first early settlers started to sell up, when they'd had enough of farming.
Had both going for a while, and then, well, I decided then that, cutting timber was pretty hard going, and they didn't pay if you didn't work. So we gradually, bought a few farms.
Max rode horses up until a few years ago, when he had one buster too many, and he recently handed in his driver's licence. But his right-hand man, stepson David Smith, lets him drive when they're out in the paddocks.
He still runs this show. He does whatever he wants and he just tells me what I got to do and I got to go and do it. So, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Like it's his. I'm just here on his arms and legs, really, just doing what he wants.
Well, we used to grow oats and stuff here for the dairy.
So what brand is this? Where's that from?
This is a Farm All H.
Littered around his farm are relics of his early days as a grain grower, when he grew oats and sorghum to sell to the many dairy farmers who once dominated the region.
It was king of tractors in its day, but it's, looking at it now, it's, wouldn't get a mention, I don't think.
But it earned its keep?
Yeah, it was good.
This harvester was 250 pounds brand new.
This is the Sunshine harvester. It was a gem in its day. They're a bit like me, I suppose. They were all good in their, but they've been, superseded now.
Max and his first wife Nell had 3 children: Heather, David, who died 18 months ago, and Patrick, who died in 1992 when he was just 43. Patrick's paintings were highly sought after by well-known collectors and companies, including Prince Charles, Margaret Rockefeller and BHP. His early works took inspiration from his bush childhood.
Didn't realise he was going to be a talented artist until later, but when he was a kid, he was always drawing stuff. Always wanted to come home and
be a farmer.
Be a farmer, and he got into this arts business, and lucky enough to get in with an old bloke in Sydney I don't know how he got into him, but he sort of set him on his way.
Max was devastated when his wife Nell died. He says the main reason he's still going is he remarried.
The one thing he said to me was that you always make your plans as if you're going to live forever. And I think that's pretty jolly true.
Hence buying another block of land a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right.
That's Max.
That's Max.
Well, we bought one up where we were this morning. That's a new one. You know, you got to face facts sometimes, and I won't be around, but it'll be good for Kay and David because, look, a young person hasn't got a hope in hell of getting into something like this without being left to.
David and his children love hearing Max's stories.
Back when I first come home here and started working with him, and we'd go and sit out in the paddock somewhere and have lunch and tell me stories about him and his father out with the cutting timber and with the old steam engines and how they walked them up over the hills, and yeah, it's just unbelievable. Like, yeah, every day you'd get a new story.
Max is a regular at local events where it seems he knows everyone.
I'd like to thank
Amanda Salisbury says around here, Max is royalty.
You know, you can say, oh, geez, Max, you know, it's a bit dry or whatever at the moment, and he'll go, oh, it's nothing compared to 1930 something or other. And it does help, you know, like you sort of go, okay, well, people have been through it before, so we can do it now.
So is there a secret to Max's longevity?
Yeah, well, I haven't got any. It's the luck of the draw, I say. It's just like any other normal bloke.
But old mate Arnie Dingle reckons it's his temperament.
I think about 20 years ago I said he'll probably outlive us all, you know, because he's the sort of fellow that nothing seems to get him disturbed, you know. He's a very casual sort of a guy.
But maybe it's because he's never tired of farming.
Some of these got a fair bit of meat on them.
Yeah, like these blokes here. Yeah.
I enjoyed every minute of farming, yeah, every minute of the day. No, they take a bit of beating, but
resting but still feeling so you're
being productive.
You're doing something.
I wanted to get really soft, beautiful, springy merino wool, which we've sourced out of Bendigo in Victoria.
Hello, I'm Fiona Breen in Hobart, inside the replica of Mawson's Antarctic huts. Life has improved vastly for Antarctic expeditioners since Sir Douglas Mawson's time. Thankfully, the kitchens and the food are a lot more sophisticated. Trapped in Commonwealth Bay for the 1913 winter, Sir Douglas Mawson and his 6 colleagues took turns creating recipes. The remains of their wooden hut and the basic kitchen and living quarters still sit in the bay. It's here that they baked penguin and curried seal, and while supplies allowed, they cooked baked mutton on Sundays. More than a century later, the local wildlife is off the menu. Antarctic food is varied, particularly at Christmas, when the station chefs go all out to make people feel at home. Incredibly, there's even fresh Antarctic-grown salad and vegetables on the festive table.
Over summer, where we have 80, 90 people, what we can provide is small, and we all share it, so you may have one lettuce leaf on your plate. But, you know, everyone appreciates seeing a little bit of greenery or a few tomatoes come into the kitchen. Over winter, obviously, where our numbers drop right down to, you know, the low 20s, we do have quite a bit more to share around. And also our yield has increased.
Ashley Wilson is a veteran Antarctic expeditioner and hydroponics gardener at Davis Station. She and a small team of volunteers grow the plants from seed.
It's appreciated, and I think the taste of fresh herbs through the food is something that really adds a bit of spark and helps the chefs keep it exciting.
It's not much, but the expeditioners love it. Even the crew at Wilkins Runway, Australia's intercontinental airfield, get a share.
We've got a few larger tomatoes that are coming on, and we have a reasonable crop of lettuce at the moment and some herbs, so we might put those into a bag and send them up for them.
The greens go by special delivery in a Hagland, a vehicle designed like a tank with tracks that travel across slippery ice or deep snow. The trip is not for the faint-hearted. It's 70 kilometres on a rough, bumpy snow track to the isolated Wilkins site, where work is underway on the Blue Ice runway. Wilkins chef Adam Hargraves is happy with the special delivery.
We're very lucky with the hydroponics, so we always get a little bit of fresh produce.
He's using these greens to knock up a rare, fresh Antarctic salad. Tonight there's a special meal for this hard-working crew.
You keeping an eye on their nutrition?
Yeah, for sure. I try to, especially after the ship comes in, there's a lot of as many fresh vegetables and fruit as I can give them.
Adam Hargraves gives us an insight into how they cook down south.
I'll start tearing up some of that beautiful lettuce that I got from Casey Station. I'll add some sun-dried tomatoes, purple cabbage, white cabbage, some cooked bacon and some boiled eggs. If I'm lucky enough to get those beautiful tomatoes from Casey Station, the hydroponics, I'll put those on the board and chop those up, and it'll give it some lovely colour through the salad. And there it is, and that's your salad, quite simple. We can do homemade pasta to do with some slow roasted duck for tomorrow. We just go through the machine a few times.
So a fettuccine cut?
Yeah, I reckon a fettuccine is about the right size. It just gives it a bit of more of a homemade feel to do it, to hand cut it, I think, instead of putting it through the machine all the time.
The guys must appreciate it.
Yeah, they always say thanks, but not too many of them walk away underweight, that's for sure, when they start down here. It'll take about 4 or 5 minutes to cook the pasta. When we're done, we'll take it outside.
Outside to the huge natural freezer that is the Antarctic. Before chef can get into main course, there's a few jobs to do outside. In strong winds and minus 14-degree temperatures, the crew are working on the blue ice runway. There's not many things that you can't get down here in the Antarctic.
No, on average we're pretty lucky. A lot of the items have to be checked before they come down, just so there's no contamination down here. But on average, no, just about everything. I couldn't imagine there's so much good food come down.
Main course at Wilkins tonight is a favourite, roasted duck and pumpkin with homemade pasta.
I put it on the platter and finish it off with a bit of fresh parsley from Casey Station. There you go, team. That's good, mate. And there it is, homemade pasta, slow roasted duck with roasted pumpkin.
Just in time. There's no rest for this crew. In the early morning, the runway is open. The conditions perfect for a lunchtime landing and another load of expeditioners ready for a summer of work in the Antarctic.
And that's the show. We hope you enjoyed it. And from all the team, we wish you a very Merry Christmas. On our next episode, the country rockers hanging on to the family farm.
Different crops, more crops, and I think that will, add a whole nother life to this properties.
What it takes to film a Landline story, and turning good wine into great vinegar.
Food service is 4- and 5-star rock star chefs from around the country.